What part of the world are you in?
Outside Chicago.
I love Chicago.
Eh, I've lived here my whole life. I'm a little tired of it. You're in LA?
I'm in LA, but I started in Chicago. I lived there for a year when I was
Oh,
19.
really?
Yeah, I had a great time. It was fun.
And I say, oh, really? And you probably address it in your book, and I have to admit, I haven't gotten as far in your book as I've wanted to.
Oh, that's okay.
But I did buy it, so
Thanks. I'll take it. I'll take it.
that is a plus for someone interviewing you, I suppose,
That's a huge plus. I'll take it. I'll take your
instead of
book
getting a
purchase.
freebie.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. But it is very funny, and I love. I guess we're just gonna jump into it, but I love the fact that you have a book out because I've always, ever since I first saw you on MadTV, I've always been fascinated by you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I used to love you on the show, and so many great people came out of that show, especially around the time you were on.
I know it's funny how it's sort of a slow burn. Like we would, I
Yeah,
mean, for me, I would always joke is it was just as hard as SNL with none of the Vanity Fair covers, and like, but it's interesting how now, like after the fact, you have like Key and Peele, and then Jordan, like going to the moon, like
another level. Yeah,
going like goodbye forever, Jordan, like the best,
forget
and then
comedy. I'm out of here.
yeah, literally, I won an Oscar and I'm friends with Spike Lee now. Like it's like a different planet.
Yeah,
And then Ike Barinholtz has become like
yeah.
and then a lot of the writers there, Katie Dippold, wrote The Heat and wrote Ghostbusters, and then
Mhm.
um Michael Hitchcock wrote like just his wrote on Glee and wrote like it's interesting how it's sort of like the slow burn, the Mad TV
Yeah,
of that era. Yeah. And then Alex
yeah.
Borstein, who was there before me, but she's now like has this amazing career and just wins all these Golden Globes
Oh
and
yeah,
Emmys. And
on Mrs.
Marvelous Mrs.
Family
Maisel.
Guy. And yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and
Yeah.
this and I always loved when I would see you on different things. Like I was never, I wasn't exactly a fan of Chelsea Handler's show, but I did like it when I saw people I liked on there, and
The,
so
it
back
was
and that was a great forum for comics too because it allowed you someplace else to be.
it really was it's an interesting thing in that you just never know. You don't know over time sort of what is going to help you or what anybody's going to see, and
Right,
so I really sort of learned to enjoy the ride and let go of any expectations, because so often things, you get all excited about something and then sometimes it doesn't even get released. So it's just to try to
right.
enjoy the ride. But Chelsea was an interesting thing because I started doing it from the beginning. I didn't know her. I started when I was on Mad TV, and I'd done other like I like pop culture, and I'd done other
Yeah,
sort of talking head pop culture things. And so it wasn't fancy when I started, and then it just took off so fast. And it was interesting to do something where it was the first thing that I had done that really put a name to a face, where you're just on as yourself and people get to know you as yourself. And um, I feel like that combined with Mad TV, that was sort of the extra ingredient that I think helps like people. It was something that people that loved that show had like a real ownership over it. And like they went to bed with you every night and they felt like they got to know you. It was an
right.
interesting, it was not, I didn't work there. What I wasn't a writer there. I would just go do it every other week. And it was just a very interesting thing to watch, to sort of have like a fourth row seat watching this machine get built. I was like, oh, like she's on the cover of Rolling Stone. Like she's just like getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It was interesting.
But it was a huge help for so many of the people that were on there. I'm sure your
Yeah.
career really got a boost from just appearances because some of those people became like I was out of the loop for a number of years, and all of a sudden Joe Coy became like a huge
Oh, I
stand. But I'm like that guy.
could not be happier for I know he's like selling out stadiums. Like so
Yeah,
happy for him. He's so nice too. Yeah, it was
yeah.
Chelsea was also the place where Bobby Lee from Mad TV did an intervention on me because I was living in New York. So like on
I don't
Chelsea,
recall this one.
I know, isn't that crazy when if Bobby's doing an
Yeah,
intervention on you, things have really gone to shit. No, Bobby, who I adore, I was living in New York so when Mad TV ended, I moved back to New York and I would fly myself in for every Chelsea Lately. And because it was late night, it was on E, we would make like $300, And he was
right.
like, he goes, Arden. And at the time, I started out doing stand up, but then I was like 21 or 22. I got an agent and then I did like sitcoms and comedic acting. And then I got Mad
Yeah,
TV, but I had sort of switched to improv because I like playing with other people and it felt slightly less scary to me than just being up there alone.
yeah,
And Bobby did an intervention on me where he was like, Arden, you and I have the same TV credits because pretty much everybody there was a touring stand up. And he said, you're the only you're making $300 doing this. You're flying yourself in. He's like, you're the only person who's not. We're all earning money every weekend. He's like, this is what I made last weekend because of this show. She announces it on the show. And then I go to a college and it was interesting at the time. I was so scared of stand up and I realized that wasn't reason enough to not do it, that I've never let fear stop me from things. So and I realized it was purely just fear. And he's like, Arden, you've performed every week anyway. You've been doing improv, like you're in shape from soccer. So you can probably pick up like a different sport. Like you're ready to go.
right.
And he really gave me like a lesson in his house, like the basics. He was like, are you a mic in the stand kind of a gal or are you a moving around person? And I was like, he goes, I think you're a moving around person. He goes, so you take the mic out of the stand and you put the stand behind you. So, I mean, literally the 101 basics.
Yeah,
And so I was willing to do it at first just to earn money, so I started doing it, just doing rooms in Brooklyn. Like I didn't want, it was hard having the credits and then you have people come as like just because you can play one sport doesn't mean you can play another. You're not going to be
right.
good for a while, so there's sort of eating humble pie of figuring it out and figuring out what your act is and figuring out, it was, so I certainly started headlining before I should have and because of the TV credits. But what was interesting was at first I was just doing it because I was willing to earn, but it ended up being like such a gift to me to see who I was up there, not hiding behind somebody else, to see who I was up there, like alone, like number one on the call sheet, not hiding behind my friend, like facing my fears and your biggest horrible thoughts about yourself running through your head. It having the audience let you know how they like you. It was actually so good for me and so many other, like it wasn't about cash. Like it was so good for me to face myself and have to go do
Yeah,
stand up.
yeah. That, I mean, that has to be extraordinarily hard. So, I mean, I've known and interviewed a lot of comedians in my time,
Yeah.
um, and I personally couldn't imagine putting myself up on stage. Like I did one live band karaoke night like
That's
years ago that I
I did that in
for.
Atlanta, but do they have that in Chicago? It's so fun.
Well, they had it for the band Wilco. It was a Wilco band release album release,
That's
and
fun.
so they were having a band there to like perform songs, and then people would come up and sing, and I just
Did you sing a Wilco song?
yeah.
That's that's fun. How did it
Yeah,
go?
well, that's like about the only time I've really put myself on stage, unless you count like school,
Yeah.
like show, plays or whatever the hell we would do.
It
I can't imagine going through that, and it's a special kind of torture.
it definitely was a weird thing. It was an interesting thing to do because so many of my friends were like the greatest comics ever. You know what I mean? So it was also, and I have such respect for the amount of time and but I had to not, I was like, okay, I've performed live every week for years. I've done improv I did it at Improv Olympic in Chicago and I continue doing it out in LA every week for every Saturday night. I did it for years. And I was on Mad TV and I'd written I wrote sketches and I'd sold pilots and it was just like, Arden, keep it simple. Just like start with 5 minutes, then get to 8 minutes, and then get to 10 minutes, and then get to 12 minutes. Like just don't compare yourself to Dana Gould. Don't compare yourself to Paul F. Tompkins. Like just be where you're at. Like, trust that you're valid up there. You don't have to be them.
Yeah.
It's be like, and that just keep doing it. Just do as many shows as you can, and I will say the upshot of starting to get 20-minute slots before I should, like, the upshot of the fear of it is it forces you to scramble, and you better get a freaking act together or you're going to drown, like,
Yeah.
just because there's nothing worse than being up there and not doing well. So, like, get it to, you are just out of sheer self-preservation, you have to get it together.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you feel like you finally, not made it, but in terms of stand up, that you actually got to the point where you didn't have to be in sheer panic all the time?
It's a funny question, and it's a horrible answer. I panic for everything always. So
Yeah.
I wish I was wired differently.
Yeah.
Um, I You know what it was? I'll tell you, the best for me is I would always get nervous the first night in a new city on a new stage. And then by the Saturday night, so that's usually like a Thursday or Friday, by like the second night I would have fun.
Yeah.
So that was like the best case scenario. I think it was when I just booked a lot of tour dates. Like, I just toured a lot.
Hmm.
And when I remember there was one show I did in Dallas, at Hyenas in Dallas, and I remember being nervous about Dallas. And just as a woman, like, a lot of the audience members, the people that were buying tickets would be a lot of Chelsea Lately fans, which were mostly ladies and gay men. And like, here I was in sort of cowboy country. So
Yeah.
half the audience are going to be these ladies' dates, and just like, can I keep their attention? Can I
Hmm.
have them? Can I make them laugh? And I remember that show, it was when I started to sort of play with the audience more and like listen, that I was able to get the cowboys to laugh. Like, there was something about, I remember I always, and Bobby also always told me to record every set because, you write your jokes, but then I started, you sort of, for me, I write a lot on stage. And so I'll have an idea about something, but then you work it out as you're going. And I would always record it. And sometimes I would improvise or say something that I didn't plan to say or remember saying. And then I would hear it back and then try it again the next night. And like, that's sort of how I would build things. And there was something about figuring out how to like get the guys to laugh in a way that when I cracked Dallas a little bit, that's when it got more fun for me. That's when it was like I wasn't terrified of the audience. It was more just my own normal nerves of being a slightly anxious person. But I
Yeah.
wasn't like completely, that I could take my time and play with a little bit. When I also figured out when I could learn to, I think when I had enough material that I also knew well enough and I could trust myself, that I could get, if somebody was really drunk or something, like the few times I had, dealing with hecklers and getting the train back on the tracks, and like being able to like figure out like what's the fun in that, like how can I make that fun, like when you've been, like, it was just time, it just took time of like doing it and doing it and doing it. um yeah, probably like 7 years,
Wow.
5 years, I don't
That's
know.
still that's still a lot though.
Yeah.
It's just it's like anything though. It's it takes practice. So
Yeah, it is that 10,000 hour thing. And I'm aware that I was starting at a deficit, but I had to remember, like, I did have credits from a different college, a
you
different
were
comedy
ahead
college.
and behind at the same time, which is
Yeah.
bizarre to think about.
I knew also at first, like, from my performing background, I knew at first I can at least give an A performance of B material. Like, you know what I mean? I knew I
Right.
could put on a show. I knew how to pace a show. And I knew if I just kept going, my material would get better.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, and the other intangible factor is other comedians,
Yeah.
and that had to was that something that like crept in the back of your mind, like when you were starting the, when you were getting into it, is how brutal other comedians can be, because you've heard podcasts where comedians slag on other comedians that just kind of like that they don't think are up to the worn standards of the New York guys or the LA guys or whoever.
I certainly was aware. I mean, yeah, and I think there was part of it was, and I respected that like people earn like they come by it honestly because they freaking put in the time. And so that
Yeah.
was why there was no part of me that was under the illusion. I knew I had to go just do a lot of shows. And that's partially why I stayed in New York. I knew there
Mhm.
was a lot of small rooms, tiny little rooms, but with
Yeah.
really fun audiences and really fun bookers that were not with, they were more just up and coming comedians. I just needed to keep performing and I needed
Yeah.
the privacy of not being very good for a while. Like I just needed to keep doing shows and I had like my partner in crime, my buddy Lisa Delarios and I would just go do a ton of shows in Brooklyn as much as we could. And there was like just also not screwing myself over by putting myself in front of like I wasn't ready to be in front of the big boys. I shouldn't have been at the Improv then. I wasn't. That's why so I didn't. So I was just
Yeah.
doing it like the respect that it deserves of like they've put in their time and like let me go. And then, so I put in my time in Brooklyn and then like when you're touring, they're not seeing you. So like you're
Right.
getting better. You're getting better in Indianapolis. You're getting better in Alaska. You're getting better in Scottsdale. Like you're just you have the privacy of being on the road and like you getting some sea legs and know that now you're doing 30 minutes, now you're doing 45, now you're up to an hour. Like there's something about I intentionally wasn't in LA doing it because I knew I wasn't ready.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think about I'm a huge fan of comedy, and I feel like I don't know as much as I would like to know, but I do know enough to get me into trouble, I suppose is the term.
Right.
But like I think about two key TV shows in the last several years that have really gotten comedy right, in my opinion. One of them is The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I think is especially interesting considering its time frame. And the other one is was Crashing by Pete Holmes.
I loved that show. I
That
loved it.
show perfectly encapsulated every variance of comedy right now.
I agree with you. I loved that show. I felt like it really captured the New York comedy scene that I knew. I thought
Yeah,
it was great. I thought that was a really interesting show. I thought his journey was really interesting. I thought it was really interesting his religious journey. I thought the episode they did with Davidoff was like so interesting of like how they handled the sort of creepy comic. I thought
yeah,
um I thought his relationship with Jamie Lee, like the other comic, the roasting, and I loved his manager. I thought, and then like the
Amazing.
really young comic that like killed, I think at the college. I thought it was
Yeah,
so interesting. You know what movie I also feel like got really right the world of the Brooklyn comedy scene was Obvious Child starring Jenny Slate.
yeah, that was a good one too.
It did. I felt like it really got that vibe of the world right. But I agree with you. I think Crashing, it really, the rhythm and I think they recreated the Boston Comedy Club, which is actually so years ago. That's where like I started as a stand-up and I got
Yeah,
like that's how I got my agent. But like I was doing it at the Boston Comedy Club. And I was like, I think they recreated that and that like I think they built the set like that.
yeah.
It was so I loved Leaf, the guy that took away his
Oh,
wife. Leaf was whoever he was so good. Like
Leaf.
Leaf was so good. I thought Pete was really charming.
Yeah,
And I loved, oh my God, when he went to the Rachel Ray show and the warm-up comic had the meltdown at the
yeah.
audience and just started like losing his shit at the audience. And I felt like they got every kind of
Well, they
kernel.
really, yeah, they got like they
Yeah,
did the they packed as much in. I wish
yeah,
it would have gone on, but
me
I
too.
packed as much in as possible that
Me
they could
too.
have. The road stuff, the
Yeah,
breaking your the offbeat scene,
yeah,
the stand up holes, all that stuff.
yeah.
It was really impressive. And I imagine that because it felt so true to life, that was probably one of the, I get the feeling in most comics will say that point to that as one of the better examples comedy reality.
Yeah, I have to say, watching it, I didn't know what to expect, and I thought, oh my god, and how great was Artie Lang in it?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like,
Artie was one of the first people I ever interviewed, and he and I have had an odd relationship over the years, and I hope he's doing well. I haven't heard anything in a long time.
yeah, I haven't either.
I hope, another MadTV alumnus.
I've never met him, and I
No,
think, but I thought he was so compelling in that show, like that they owned
yeah,
his whole history. Like he just, I thought he was so charming, and you're rooting for him, and you're worried about him, and I,
that's real life. That's Noah
yeah,
Purdy.
yeah, yeah,
It's literally the same thing. It's like I have a son that has issues himself, and
right,
it's the same thing with Artie. It's like you love him, but you're always so worried about him, and then everybody's going, "How's Artie?" It's like, and
yeah,
I think maybe that's taxing on its own. Not to talk too much about him, but I think that has to be taxing on him
for
to
sure.
constantly be someone that everyone is worried about.
Yeah, trust me, I come from a family. I get it,
Yeah, I
and
got into some of the stuff with the family, and I do want to pivot to the book soon. But yeah,
yeah.
your family definitely is
Oh,
interesting.
oh, true. I mean, so I get it, and yeah, I felt like it really handled sort of more poignant, bigger things, and also was super, super funny, and
Yeah,
captured sort of the fun ball busting of like the comedy scene. Like it was fun, and I really, I thought they got it right. It was a fun show to watch.
yeah. There's not enough of that kind of thing out there, and maybe there will be, and who
I
knows.
know my brain just like went to. I feel like I watched something else similar, but I can't.
I
We've
can't
we
think. Well,
watched so much stuff during the
there
pandemic. It's hard
was
to.
that show that was on Showtime for 2 seasons about.
Oh yeah, I watched the second season during the pandemic. I haven't watched the first season, the one with Andrew Santino and Melissa Leo. I'm dying up
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
liked it. I liked it.
yeah.
I
You started with the second season though,
I don't know why I started with the second season. I watched the whole second season. Um,
and that
I
was
like.
it. That's just the 2 seasons though.
You know who was good in that and who surprised me? Who Jake Lacey, he was an obvious child as a love interest. He was on High Fidelity as a love
I
interest.
remember. I think I know who you're talking about, but it's
But
been so long.
he played the heroin addict on I'm Dying Up Here. He's so straight,
Okay.
he's so corn-fed, like Iowa looking, like
Yeah,
straight-laced
yeah.
farm boy. And yet he played this sort of charismatic heroin addict, and uh what's his name? Brad Garrett was so good in that.
Brad Garrett. Brad Garrett's one of those people like Ray Romano, who I may not have been the biggest Ray Romano fan or Brad Garrett fan
Yeah.
for the thing when obviously they were on the same damn show. But like Ray Romano he was on Vinyl, which I didn't watch all of,
Yeah.
but I thought he was one of the only impressive things on it. And he was really good in The Irishman. But Brad,
I
really
like when
good.
you see like these guys in sort of darker, like it's like a Bill Murray thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
When you
yeah,
see these guys with like some darker humanity, it's
yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. Brad was really good on I'm Dying Up Here. He played a very troubled person.
Yeah. Yeah. It was I liked it. I liked that a lot. I felt that also captured some of the camaraderie and um yeah, I really I liked the casting of it. There's a lot of people that I enjoyed in
Yeah,
that.
it's hard though it's sometimes it's hard to do that 70s thing. A lot of times the 70s era doesn't seem to be a good fit for modern TV shows.
I know I liked watching it, but I can see how people are like, "Oh, I don't relate to that." Like I actually thought
Right.
they did a really good job. I thought the sets were beautiful. Like I thought
Yeah.
they really captured that vibe. I thought it was interesting. And I think for whatever reason that might have been some weird like point of entry that people got sort of like, "No, thanks." I don't
Yeah.
want to
The
I don't
70s are the
this
70s are kind of like an underserved decade as far as culturally, I think.
Just give me a Dazed and Confused. Dazed and Confused is like the most fun 70s
Right.
movie.
That's one of the few examples. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me talk about a little bit about your book. Where did the start? Where did that start? How did that start? I mean, who did somebody come to you? Did you decide to start writing stuff? Or how did that all happen?
Over the years, I had various people sort of when I would talk about my family and my town, a lot of people would say you should write a book, um, and then like I tried over the years. I had like proposals and stuff, and then 2 summers ago, Sarah Colonna's and she was on Chelsea Lately with me, and then she was on
Yes, I remember
Insatiable with
Sarah.
me.
Yeah.
Her book agent reached out and was like, I want to pitch a book with you. I want you to pitch a book. And so because it's hard to sell a book. And so I was really trying to think like, okay, it's time consuming. I mean, it's a big task to write a book. I thought like, what would I want to say? Like, what would if I'm going to write a book, like what would I actually want to, why would I write it? What story would I want to tell?
Mhm.
And so I worked hard on the proposal. I had a bunch of chapters written. It was really outlined, and then I sold it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was yeah. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but I sold it on a really insane day. Like I sold it on one of the craziest days of my life, and it really altered the writing of the book. Like
Yeah.
an event happened out of the blue that was completely shocking. And then on the way to the event, I got an email going, hope you're having a great week. And that's when I sold the book, and it changed the whole book.
Yeah. So then that's obviously in the book.
It's in the book.
Spoiler
Yeah.
kind of thing, like a movie. So
Yeah.
I feel bad that I don't know it, but it's probably just as well if we don't want to ruin it. So
yeah, it completely shifted the point. It changed the whole DNA of the book, which I actually think made it a better book.
yeah.
But yeah, this thing happened, and that's the day I sold my book. And so it completely, I was like, I mean, well, I don't know. Should I spoiler alert it? I don't know. You tell me.
I guess we can let's see if we're gonna I'm gonna test my editor on this. We're gonna try to put up some flashing spoiler alert signs at this point.
How about this? If you don't want to know what the spoil is, fast forward 5 minutes.
There you go. And then or just go buy the book and read it.
Or just go buy the book and read it. It's not going to ruin the book. It's not going to ruin the book, but so my intention, I wanted to write sort of like a fun David Sedaris book, like about like a Royal Tenenbaum quirky family that I grew up. My parents married on a dare. They weren't dating,
which is bizarre.
But like and then they moved from Manhattan to this tiny town in Rhode Island called Little Compton. So the book is called Little Miss Little Compton.
I apologize that I didn't set that up properly.
That's okay.
Sometimes I get wrapped up in talking at first, and then we.
That's fine.
Yes, Little Miss Little Compton.
So it is. So it's basically this quirky family in this tiny quirky town, and 2 people that married on a dare that had never been on one date, and they moved to this tiny town that doesn't have a stoplight. The only store is a old-fashioned general store. The only coffee shop is like in an apple orchard, and it's this sort of wacky, sort of David Sedaris-y type family in this tiny town. And I'm like this little redheaded child that looked like a boy who had stars in her eyes, who just wanted to get out of there. Yeah. And so, but like I had all the sort of magical lessons from this family, but there was also certain things I was lacking, like certain basic things lessons that I did not learn in this household, is what happens when you grow up when people marry on a dare and start a family. So,
yeah. So, not to mention the dividing of parental responsibility.
Yes. My mom wanted 4 kids. My dad wanted 0. So they had 2. And it was basically like a divorced family, but they were married. And that it was like a divorced family where my mom got sole custody, but they were married and lived in the same house. So
it's the most bizarre setup I've ever heard of.
So my brother and I were basically, so he'd be like, I told your mother we were her kids. Like, and so just the rule. Like there was magical fun stuff. Like I had like Mary Poppins and John Belushi without the comedy talent, like living in
Yeah.
the house, just madness.
Yeah.
And so the book is like about sort of like how I kind of the funny stories about growing up in this house, and also how I learned to be like get out and be an adult and be like a functioning adult, and like how
Yeah.
I participate in society and I turned out okay. And but so the spoiler alert is I was back in Atlanta filming season 2 of Insatiable, and my dad had died right before season 1, and I was back in Atlanta filming Insatiable. My mom and I were supposed to go to like New Orleans, like, and she was still working and blah blah blah. And basically, like, I was at this like twerk out class at a Hasidic rec center with the cast of Insatiable, and I
Oh.
get this call from my mom's business partner, and like nobody could get in touch with her. And I was on the phone with she died. They found I was on the phone, they found her. She like had a heart attack making breakfast out of the blue, completely healthy, totally like completely out of the blue. And so this was like both parents back to back, both seasons of Insatiable. So I had to fly up to Rhode Island and to go to the funeral, shocked. I mean, absolutely shocked. And that's I sold the book on the way to her funeral. And so it was like
Yeah.
literally it was I allowed myself to cancel anything I wanted to cancel in life. But like she was barely in the proposal. And then my friend said it's not my memoir, it's my memoir. Like it really became her book.
Yeah.
And I think it became a much more sort of positive book, a more sort of hopeful book. But like that was the beginning of me writing the book, was the unthinkable had happened. And that was the mindset I like, but it was actually rather than being sort of I mean, it was a horrible, I was, you know,
No, I get what you're
hard.
saying.
But it was like, no, I sort of showed, it was sort of a beautiful thing to sort of show up every day and have a conversation with her on the page. Like it was sort of, it was not unpleasant to go write the book. I canceled anything else I didn't want to do, but that was
Right.
kind of, there was sort of a grace and joy and sort of celebration of all these quirky, she was a really fun mom and like all this
Yeah.
sort of fun, because all these people were, I didn't realize sort of what an extra odd mom I had, like until everybody was telling me these stories. And I think it was sort of celebrating of all of the good programming I got from the good parent, and that
Yeah.
changed the book.
Yeah. I mean, I, I'm not too far into it, but I love the part where she would call people she didn't like a drip.
Yeah. Her main
Uh,
thing, particularly with kids, her main thing was like, don't be a drip. She didn't want my brother and I
yeah.
to be a drip. And so
Yeah.
she'd be like, there was no pizzazz if you ever drip. Like, don't be a drip. Like, don't be like, just sort of like nut up, like get it
Yeah.
together, have a little sparkle, have a little chutzpah. Like, don't be like
Right.
whiny or complaining or a baby. Like, and so she had very little tolerance when she had, if I had a birthday party and some kid was I remember being roller skating and some girl was like holding her and she's like, Mrs. Marine, the girls are being mean to me. And she's like thinking, like, yeah, because you're a fucking drip. Like, I'd be mean to you too. Like, get it together, have a little sparkle, stop being a drip, So that was her main thing, was just like, just don't be a drip. Just
Yeah.
have something going on. Like have a little chutzpah. Let's go.
There was the fascinating thing is it took a while to kind of get into the rhythm of the book because it was so different from what I get. I don't know what I was expecting, but it's not a typical memoir or biography or however. It's a little bit almost like you're taking your life and then also adding adding obviously a comedic spin to it, but there's just other level to it where I can actually see this being like a Wonder Years kind of TV show, in some odd way.
I know, I was thinking there hasn't been a female Wonder Years. Like,
Yeah.
it is very much, I realize again, the timing and everything, how I grew up in a very unique, specific little town with a
Yeah.
very unique, specific set of parents. And somebody said it felt like my friend said it felt like the family felt like the Royal Tenenbaums and the setting felt like Moonrise Kingdom. Like that
Yeah.
you're in a whole other world and it's a time and a place that is most people haven't been to a town like that.
No, no.
It's a
Even
whole other planet.
growing up in probably the same era, the town you described is foreign to me because I grew up, right outside the city limits of Chicago. So it's like the only experience close that I had was what my great uncle had a farm in downstate Illinois.
Yeah.
That's the closest I ever came to anything like Mayberry or anything like that.
Yeah, it is this unique. It is truly, and it's still like that. Like I brought some friends there
That's
last
bizarre.
year. It's still like that. I mean, it's magic. It looks like it's like a time. It looks like Ireland. It's cliffs to the sea. It's got stone walls and fields and fireflies, and I mean, it's magic. And there's like no cell service, and it is truly. We didn't ever own a key to our house. Like I don't think we had to get one made after she like. There is no way to lock it. Like no, my people would leave their keys to their car in the ignition
That
unlocked.
I've read that, and that was so bizarre.
I know.
And then you got somebody went into your mom's car and
Rifled through her CDs. Yeah, they rifled through it, and like we were begging her to lock the house and like not leave the keys.
At the very least, don't leave it in the ignition.
Yeah, I mean truly, and so yeah, I mean it was a really funny. It's what you grew up with. So when you sort of like I got out of there so early. I mean, I moved to Chicago when I was 19. I had such stars in my eyes, but I am aware, that they moved from Manhattan. So I always knew I was going to get out. I was aware of a world out there. Her only requirement of my brother and I was that we each live in New York City for 2 years. That's it.
Right.
And I did, and I loved it. But that she really wanted us to be able to use our imaginations and not be over programmed. And I think it worked, I think I was talking to Mike Kaplan on his podcast, and he was asking me what I'd like to do when I was little. I was like, I would just love to like play store and play this. He's like, and he said, I actually think your mom's plan worked because there were no stores. Like, there was there was no mall. There was no store. There was no, like, you'd have to go pretend everything because it literally didn't exist there.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because like again, I think we grew up in about the same era. Do you feel like you were at a loss culturally when you moved on to other cities?
No, I was like so ready to go. I was like dying of thirst. No,
Yeah.
because I was also completely unsupervised. I watched so much adult stuff. Having an older brother, I had a very cool older brother, but I mean, I was like 6. I watched every Monty Python movie, every Steve Martin movie, every Mel Brooks movie, every Woody Allen movie, like a 6, 7, 8-year-old. I mean, I shouldn't have been watching this stuff, but like, so I had a very sort of funny, cool older brothers from a very young age, programming of like comedy greats.
Yeah.
So no, I felt just, I think in some ways, I was so ready for it and romanticized it so much. I was just ready to go live in a city. And I was so excited and not afraid of it at all. Like, let's go.
Well, that's interesting. Now, what, seeing as how you come from this town, then you move to Chicago, your first outside of Rhode Island, living experience as you're aware of. What was your first year in a big city like?
Oh my God, I had the best time. I had so much fun. I had a fake ID. Mostly so I could go, because Improv Olympic was at a bar then. So it was at the Wrigley side. So that way I needed to be 21 to be able to see the shows. So I got my hands on a fake ID. And I took every class I could take, and I started performing. I went to every show. Like, it was so exciting to finally find my people, and to be the level of talent that was there when I was there was huge. I had the best time. I had so much fun. It was so exciting creatively, and I just couldn't get enough of going to shows and taking classes and hanging out and doing bits. Like, I just was so excited to find people that were like doing it and talented.
Yeah. What was the moment where you went from Chicago did you go from to
To New
LA,
York, to New
Chicago
York,
to New
to
York? Okay.
I knew there weren't that many women in Chicago, and I
Yeah.
just felt like,
Doing improv or comedy.
yeah, and I felt like my need to please, I just felt that I probably wasn't going to thrive there, and I just felt like even though I had the best time, I didn't see people that looked like me doing it.
Yeah.
Um, so, but it was like still such an incredible, I mean, I think back, it was like one of my happiest years of my life. It was
Mhm.
so fun. And I was a 19-year-old female in that world. It's like, it
Yeah.
just wasn't, it was an uphill climb for me to thrive in that environment, even though
Yeah.
everyone was really nice to me. But I mean, as far as like taking me seriously as a performer, you know?
Well,
So,
we're still talking about what's technically the dark ages of uh,
yeah.
comedy in particular for women. The 90s
Oh,
were still the dark ages.
oh, well, people would say to your face, women aren't funny.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So, and so I'd never heard that before I got to Chicago. Nobody had ever said
Right,
that to me. And I'd written
right,
plays. I'd all through high school, I would write and direct plays, and, and nobody had ever thought it was weird that a woman was, I didn't know that people thought that.
right.
No one had ever even, no guy or girl had ever said anything like that to me. And so
Yeah,
that was a shock. That was like a cold bucket of water. Even though it was
yeah.
a great environment, I don't think it was the right environment for me to thrive in. It wasn't.
Right.
So,
So New York ended up being that case.
well, so I went to New York. I got an internship at Conan the first year that it was on,
Okay.
and I knew my friend and I shared a terrible, like, shitty apartment, and um I knew I had no connections, and I just wanted to see how a TV show was made. I figured out how to get college credit for it. So I worked 5 days a week there, all day, full time for 6 months, and
Doing what at Conan?
I was lucky because I was on the first year where I applied to, like, 35 internships, and they were the only ones that wrote me back. I think
Okay.
all the good interns went to, like, Letterman,
Yeah, yeah.
and, what was cool about it was this is when Conan was getting renewed, like, 11 episodes at a time, and this was when,
Right,
like, Craig Kilborn was, like, circling the building in a hovercraft, like, or, like, Jon
right,
Stewart. I don't know, there's always the rumors. I don't know who
right,
actually,
right. Yeah, there was. I
there was
didn't
rumors
learn
of
about
who.
that until later, but yeah, Conan was not exactly on easy street
Yeah,
with.
I don't know who it was, but I know that there was this guy, and I liked the show. Like, I thought
Yeah.
and so I think at the time there was a batch of interns. There was like 3 of us that were pretty on it. And then the rest of them, like, again, like, the really good interns went to other places. So we were like the 15 that were left. There was 3 of us that were pretty on it. And so I lucked out. They put me with I was the assistant to the script supervisor, which was cool because I wasn't, like, fetching food, I wasn't answering phones, I was on the set with her. I got to be, like, in the control room and on the set. I was with the lady who kept the script. So
Right.
that enabled me to get out of, like, the lobby of the production offices and down onto this, like, in the stage and in the control room, and then in the offices in the morning. But, it was fascinating, it was, and again, there wasn't one woman writer on staff, like, not one, but, like,
Yeah.
the head writer was Robert Smigel, who was incredible. And
Right.
then you had, just amazing. You had, like, Alec Berg, who just did Barry, and you had Dino Stamatopoulos, and Louis C.K. was there, and you have Bob Odenkirk. I mean, like, the staff was pretty crazy,
Yeah.
and then they offered me a PA job at the end, and I remember just realizing that I mostly just wanted to be a guest. Like, it's not what I didn't want to work production. And
Right.
so I I finished school really quickly. I did like 2 years in a year. I took every credit I could take to finish on time, and I started waitressing and working as an elf at Macy's Santaland, and then I interned for a casting director, and then I did stand-up at night, and that's how I got
Yeah.
my agent, and then I quickly lucked out. I mean, I booked the first audition I went on, they flew me to LA to test for this pilot. I didn't get it, but it was enough to get me signed. And then I booked like this AMC show and a Woody Allen movie. And then I booked this sitcom called Working, which was on NBC that moved me
I
out to LA
remember.
for 2 years with Fred
Yeah, I
Savage.
remember working. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember it.
It was funny. It was Fred Savage. It was sort of The Office before The Office. It was sort of like a
Yeah, yeah,
Dilbert. It was fun. It was very so
yeah,
Dana Gould was on that and Fred Savage and then my friend Steve Heitner who was Kenny Bania on Seinfeld. So that
yeah,
moved
yeah,
me
yeah.
that moved me to LA.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what about LA keeps you there besides it just being the hub of entertainment?
It's the hub of entertainment. I tried, believe me. I always picked New York and so when Mad TV ended, like I just kept booking jobs out here, which was great, but then when Mad TV ended, I realized like everything in my life, I've always sort of consciously made a goal or like I've gone for things. And I realized that when I booked working in my mind, I thought, oh, I'll be out there for like 6 months. And then it was 2 years. And then I kept getting things. And it was almost like the wind blew me to LA. And that's
Yeah.
when I thought, well, I'm not really that passive. And then, then I did Mad TV. And when Mad TV ended in 2009, I was like, okay, this is my window. I have some cash in the bank. I don't have another job.
Mhm.
Let's go. So I moved back to New York immediately. And it might have even been earlier than that. I guess it was 2009. And and but I kept working out here. So and I kept like I was doing Chelsea Lately over the other day. And then my friend and I sold a pilot. And so like I was fully living like Kato Kalin in my friend's basement. Like I was just like the house guest that is sort of fun and doesn't go home and like is there forever.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I was like, all right, you know, I tried to move back to New York. I keep working in LA. All my friends are in LA. Like now this is my choice. Like I'm choosing to move back to LA. Like I gave it the go. Like clearly the momentum keeps bringing me back to
Yeah.
LA and all my pals are here. So that's why I'm here. But no, I would
So
never pick LA.
no, yeah, no, does the weather and climate suit you?
No, no, God, no, no. I'm a New England girl. Are you kidding me? No. I'm a natural ginger in the desert. This is my hell. I hate the heat. It's horrible. No, no. Give me a season. Are you kidding me? No, this
See,
is
because
the worst.
I thought about moving to Los Angeles a few years ago, and I'm like, you're a person that ended up hating. Like, I would always get that seasonal depression with being in Chicago, and then, but there was a certain point in my adult life, I decided I don't like it when it's sunny.
I get seasonal depression when it's hot. I mean, I understand the sunlight thing. I get depressed like in the heat.
Yeah,
So no, I get that. I really do. And I have like the river. I'm the only person who is psyched that on Sunday it's gonna be dark earlier. Like I understand. I am a vampire who likes it cold. I am a
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Nordic Viking. Put me in an igloo. I am Nanook of the North. Like this is not my natural habitat. There is
yeah,
no
yeah.
part of me that is a sun worshiper. I burn and freckle. It is no. Oh God, no. Horrible.
I, this oddly enough, what you just said reminded me of something Artie used to say. He said, I like my apartment to be as cold as a meat locker."
Yeah. I mean, truly, I'm like, it's so hot outside today. And and it's not even a hot day. This isn't even the
Right,
hot one, you know? I'm
right.
like, oh, it's almost Halloween. Like each year you just have to make it to Halloween. Once you make it to
Yeah,
Halloween, then we get like 3 months of like 60-degree weather, and people
yeah,
are
yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
freezing. It's
Yeah,
just
no,
I can't. I
I'm
can't.
getting we've got 40-degree right now, and I'm like, yeah, I can deal with this.
I love that. Are you kidding? As long as I know, like, let me get my winter clothes out. Let me get my
Right,
sweaters out. Let me get my coat
right.
out. Love it.
Which, yeah, it's something you don't really need in LA generally, unless something freakish happens.
It gets very cold at night in the winter for
Well,
like a
because of the
month.
desert.
For like a
Yeah,
month. It's actually pretty cold. But,
Yeah.
and I say this because I've always only lived in like 1920s buildings with no insulation. And you're like, oh, LA does get really cold. But it's not, I mean, trust me, having lived in Chicago for a year and being
Yeah.
from New England,
Right.
Chicago wins. It is the coldest. It is so much colder than New England. It is so much colder than New York. A Chicago winter, you win. It is brutal.
It's weird
But
though, because yeah.
I will say, having grown up in like a Nantucket type town, I
Yeah.
will tell you, nobody does summer better than Chicago because you've earned it and you're
Yeah.
so psyched. You've got your taste of Chicago. You've got your backyard kielbasa's going. Like, Chicago loves and makes the most use of. There's nothing more fun than Chicago in the
Yeah,
summer.
I will say that that still is, but you know what's weird is because of global warming, like we haven't really been getting too many hard winters anymore.
What? What are you
No, I
talking
mean
about? That's
there are
sad.
patches where there are patches where there are like weeks where it's very cold and that wind hits you, but it's gotten to the point where we hardly see any snow in winter.
Okay, I don't wish you guys to be freezing, but that saddens me. Like, I don't like,
It's
because it
weird.
because it was like negative 100 and it was like
Oh,
so freezing.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like negative
I remember the
18.
'90s. I
Yeah,
remember
it's
the
like
'90s.
it was so cold, and then it's sad that it could actually not be cold anymore.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not good for the
weird.
planet.
I mean, it does get cold. It's just that the last decade is
It sucks.
dramatically different than it
It's
was.
frightening. That's
Yeah,
frightening.
yeah, it's dramatically different than it used to be. Where you could go the whole winter and have it snow, and then the next day it'll be warm enough to melt all of it.
I don't know how I feel about that. That
It's
worries me.
weird.
That worries me on behalf of mankind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But apparently, like if you get into Minnesota and Canada, when it snows, it sticks. So
Why is your show called Rock and Roll Ghost?
okay, well that's a good question. So for years I was writing for different websites, and when I decided to do my own blog, this is back in the late 2000s. I decided to do a blog. I didn't I didn't like the idea of putting any attention on myself,
Okay.
so I wanted to create a persona.
Okay.
And so there's this album by the Replacements
Okay.
called "Don't Tell a Soul," and it's got a song called "Rock and Roll Ghost" on it. But the cover is basically like the title of the song "Rock and Roll Ghost." It's a guy in black and white with a lit cigarette, and it's very it's like a ghost basically. And
Okay.
I've used that as my image for years.
I
Uh,
love that.
yeah, and it's not until I've written for like Eater and Thrillist under my own name, but
All right. I didn't know if we were talking about ghosts or anything. I got
no,
excited.
no, no, no ghosts. No,
Okay.
no. It's just
Fair enough.
yeah, just a lover of the Replacements.
That sounds good to me. I got no beef. I got no beef with that.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. You've been a really good guest, but I do want to just follow up on a couple of things. How has this year been for you?
You know, I have to say, for me personally, I'm pretty good at putting structure in. And I think I was in Atlanta the last 2 years. So I'm so happy to be home I've had a lot of structure from having to launch my book and doing a lot of podcasts or interviews or whatever. Like, so I've done okay. I think some people that I'm close with, I think it's hard, I think
Yeah.
um I really miss the thing that I think was like the hardest for me as far as the most disappointing was I really wish I could go on tour. Like I've done some virtual readings and stuff like that, and it's so fun. It's such a like I never thought I would have a book, and then it's so nice to get to
Yeah.
meet people who've read it, and I love doing stand up. So like the thought that I could actually tour doing like clubs and like bookstores or readings, like I like meeting people. I enjoy people, and so that's sort of that part is like, oh, that sucks. Like I don't like I've never seen it in a bookstore, like things like
Right.
that. Like um and I really miss hanging with my friends, like with our masks off. You know what I mean? Like being inside with the like I've been pretty socially distanced.
Mhm.
I think like I'm now like, craving my pals, but I'm grateful and aware that I'm lucky that I've been able because of Zoom has really been kind of amazing. It's been easy to do my podcast. I have been able to promote my book. I don't feel isolated. Like it is amazing. Like God bless Zoom. I mean, truly, I think it's given like I know how to structure my days. I know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful, that I've been healthy and been able to pay for my life, and I'm aware that that's a privilege.
Yeah.
And I just hope for everyone's sake, like I look forward for everybody when everybody can just go be with their pals again and their families. And
Yeah.
I think everyone is like rising to the challenge, and we're all adapting, and I think it's hard.
No, it's especially in this day and age when trying to tell people they can't do something when
Yeah.
you've been telling them for years they can do anything,
Yeah.
virtually. I know for me that this podcast actually started out as a result of my getting near a breaking point, mentally and emotionally, being, because I'm not exactly a social person, but
Right.
after 3 months it was starting to take a toll on me, and I'm like, but then I started seeing all this stuff with Zoom, and I'm like, oh wait a minute, everybody's locked in. I might actually have a chance to get some decent guests for a change.
I mean, I have to say, like, my podcast is really so I host a very silly podcast. It's called Will You Accept This Rose? It's on iHeart. It's a
I'll write
podcast about The Bachelor. It's about The
yeah,
Bachelor.
yeah,
But like my podcast, I actually have accidentally, you know, built a really good machine that makes it's like a fun light thing, and I think people enjoy it. It's a nice distraction. Like it
yeah,
cheers me up to do it. I think the listeners like it. So I think between that and launching the book, um, I've had very busy days and I have felt connected. I think that's great that you started that. I really think that like it does help. Like, and you go to bed and you feel like, you've had conversations with people. So that's the thing that's been neat about launching the book is I have all these like hour-long conversations with people, and you get to know different people that you might not normally meet. And
right.
um like
Well,
it's not
I prefer this to doing phone interviews,
oh
because
yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
at least get to see the person.
I agree with you. I know I've done some podcasts that do Zoomcaster and you can't or Zencaster, you can't see the people. I'm like, I want to see
Yeah,
your face.
yeah, yeah,
Anyway, so I'm doing okay, but I know a lot of people who are struggling.
yeah,
I feel like if there's any bones buried in the backyard, like the rains are here, and like anything that you don't want to deal with is like coming to the surface, and you got to face
yeah.
yourself when you can't like you can't go
Well, it's
anywhere.
like, I mean, you think about the last decade or so, especially the last 20 years, people have, being out, being social,
Yeah.
going there, uh, putting what you're doing everywhere.
Yeah.
Social media has become a thing, and now everybody's just like, I'm here at home. My life is empty because I don't have the life I was living before that everybody says I'm supposed to have.
Right. My avatar isn't out there killing it.
Right, right, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I will say I think not like in a weird way, last year with my mom, like, was so shocking, and I knew if I gave into it, it would just take me under, and so I actually talk about in the book, like, which I actually think it's good timing for, like well, like, literally what I did to be okay, and you
yeah,
could see that I am okay, and, like, and I'm kind of just like, "Oh, I'll just implement the recipe I came up with last I'm just doing it again," like, lower the
yeah,
bar, go on some slow walks, like, watch some simple TV, like The Great British Bake Off or Queer Eye, like, you can throw in some more, try to see I like one of the gifts of for me last year with my mom, like one of the gifts of grief, but I think to me the pandemic is a very similar sensation.
yeah,
Is that like I feel like you instinctively know, like your body knows like who you want to hang out with and who you don't, or who you want to talk to on Zoom and who you don't. And like it kind of eliminates the unnecessary. Like there's really nobody I see or talk to that I don't want to see or talk to right now. Like
right,
it's
right.
kind of eliminated the ones that I'm doing out of guilt. Like I'm not doing much out of guilt right now because I just don't have the stamina for it, nor do I think anybody else does.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's proven to be a taxing year for many people for many different reasons,
It's hard. It's
and
so hard.
it doesn't help that, and not to get into any particular other area, but it's like there's so much else that has gone on this year.
I know.
It's
I
like
know.
adding, so people have said it's like putting the 1918 pandemic with the civil rights,
Yeah.
unrest of the 60s, and the Watergate era, and like two other things, folding them all into one year.
No, it is a reckoning. This year is a global reckoning. It is
Yeah,
intense. And I think it will only be in retrospect when we all are like, I think at this point we're all hunkered down and just making it through.
yeah,
And in a couple of years when we have perspective, I think like I'm rooting for everybody. I think everybody's doing the best they can.
yeah.
And it'll be weird. It'll be interesting to like re-enter, to like have to figure out how to socialize again and like not be a weirdo and like you know what I mean? Like there's gonna be a
Yeah,
weird re-entry of like it's almost like we're all astronauts on our own little things, and there's gonna be some weird re-entry, I think.
yeah.
But
Well, a lot of
I'm
people,
ready for it. I'm ready for it.
yeah, a lot of people have said it's like, well, after the 1918, pandemic, there was the Roaring Twenties, and
Oh, that's interesting. I can see that.
yeah.
That's
So hopefully we
interesting.
have like a revitalization,
Oh, people
and
are
mentally.
jonesing to party. People have
Yeah,
steam to blow off. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's like a soda bottle that's being shook. Like people are ready to, they got some steam to blow off.
yeah. Now, hopefully in the next year we can start getting to that point.
I know.
I pray. I
Me
pray.
too. Me too.
But well, I wanted to, I mean, I've been talking to you for a little over an hour, so I do appreciate that, and I want to say thank you very much for taking your time. You can visit Arden Myrin on her website, her social media. Pick up Little Miss Little Compton. It's available in various formats, Kindle, which I'm reading. If you want to get the actual, book form, like you put it in your hands, that's
It's
great
got
too.
photos in it. It's a good book. And the
Yeah.
audiobook just came out. So if you
And
like
the
that,
audiobook, yeah,
yeah.
buy all of them. Yeah,
Buy all of them. Buy all
I
of them.
implore everyone listening to this to buy all of it.
Buy
Uh,
all of them. Yes. Yes. Well, and if you want a signed copy and you can get a free tote bag with it, you can go to ardenmarinbook.com, but it looks like Myrin. It's Myrin is my
yeah,
last.
yeah. And Arden, Arden. Yep.
ARDENMYRIN. Well, thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for doing it. It was a real honor.
It's my pleasure. It was nice to meet you. And
Nice to meet you too.
come on, onward ho, everybody. Here we
Yeah,
go. We got
yeah.
this. All right, I'll
All
talk
right.
to you later. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.